So this is Algebra 1, Lesson 112, called More on Multiplication of Radical Expressions. So let's go ahead and put Lesson 112 there. Alright, so up to this point, what you have done with radicals, as far as multiplying, is you've been doing things like the square root of 3 times 5 plus the square root of 12. And then you've distributed. So these two gave you 5 square root of 3, because if their 5 is not in a radical sign, you don't multiply, you just stick it on. But since this one and this one are in a radical, then you multiply. Okay, and you end up with 5 square root of 3 plus square root of 36 is 6. So you ended up with something like that. Alright, in this lesson we're going to go a little further, and this what we're going to do in this lesson is try to avoid making the common mistake that a lot of students make. Alright, this one isn't so terribly bad. They're not hard to do, it's just remembering all the rules. Okay, so the way you do this one is you're using the FOIL method. So the first, the outside, inside, and last. Okay? So when you have two binomials like that, you're going to get 4 answers. Alright, so the only thing we can do with this is we can change that to a 4, add that to the 6, and get 10 plus 2 square root of 8 plus 3 square root of 2. Alright, now that all looks well and good, but we can do a couple things. One is we cannot add these because the radicals are different. Alright, so what we're going to do is see if we can make the radicals the same. Well, we know in your infinite wisdom that 8 can be reduced. 8 is actually square root of 4 times 2, right? And we know that square root of 4 is 2. So we're going to take the square root of 4 and bring that out there and leave that other square root in there. Okay. And that gives us 10 plus 4 square root of 2 plus 3 square root of 2. Now we can add these together because the radical is the same. And we're done. So let's keep going here. This will be example 112.2, where they ask you to multiply times 2 minus 2 square root of 5. Okay, so again, first, outside. Now, because, see, this number isn't in a radical and that isn't, we can multiply those, and then the square root of 5 just gets stuck on there. That's outside. Inside would be these, and again, the 2 gets stuck with the square root of 5 because it doesn't have a radical, so we just put them together like that. And then finally, last, square root of 5 times negative 2 square root of 5. So the square root of 5 and square root of 5 multiplied is the square root of 25. Okay. So we can combine those and those because we have a square root of 5 and a square root of 5. So we just take negative 8 plus 2 and get negative 6 square root of 5. Okay, so notice what happened here. The negative 8 square root of 5 and the 2 square root of 5, the 5 is kind of like an x. It's kind of like taking negative 8x plus 2x. You didn't do anything to the x, you just add the numbers. Negative 8 and 2 is negative 6, and the square root of 5 or the x just kind of tags on there. So that's kind of the same idea there. Okay, and then we have minus 2, square root of 25 is 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. So 8 minus 10 is negative 2 minus 6 square root of 5. Okay, so let's do 112.3 example and see if we can keep moving along here. Alright, we have 2 plus the square root of 2. Whoa, that didn't look like a 2, does it? Times 3 plus 2 square root of 2. Alright, again, FOIL method first. Outside. Okay, so again, we take the 2 times this 2 and get 4. We can't multiply this radical times anything because there isn't anything to multiply it by. Okay, and then we do our inside. And again, can't multiply those, so we stick them together. And then our last, this one and this one. Now, see, we have two radicals. We can multiply those and get 4, but because I didn't have anything to multiply this 2 by, it just stays by itself. Alright, so let's go ahead and simplify these. And you notice that we have square root of 2's there, so we have 6 plus, okay, so add the 4 and the 3 and not get 6, we get 7. And square root of 2 is, or square root of 4 is 2, so I multiply that by that one. Alright, so we get 10 plus 7 square root of 2. Alright. Let's go to the last one, and this is probably the hardest one. And it's the hardest one because a lot of students forget what it means. So we have square root of 2x plus square root of 3y squared. Alright, this is what a lot of students will do. They will look and square this and then square that and be done. So for example, if they have, let's make one a lot easier, square root of 2 plus square root of 3 and it's squared, they will say, oh, square root of 4 plus square root of 9 equals 2 plus 3 equals 5. Okay, that is not what that means. This squared that we have up here means that we take the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 times itself. Isn't that what a square means? Take everything inside the parentheses and multiply it by itself. So now we do the FOIL method. Okay, same thing is true. Alright, come on, erase. I've got this new pen. I've been trying new pens all year, and I think this one will work well. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite it. Twice. Okay, so that reminds me of what I'm doing. Now I do FOIL. This times this. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. X times x is x squared. Alright, so let's do the outside. This times this. Okay, so square root of 2 times the square root of 3, and x times y is just xy. You can't multiply those, so you just stick them there. Okay, let's do black here. Inside for FOIL, and that will be an xy square root of 6. Because, see, I can multiply 3 times 2 and get 6, x times y and get xy. Alright, now, last part will be the last. The last numbers are that one and that one. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, and then y times y is y squared. Alright, so the square root of 4 is 2. I can add those because I have an xy and an xy. Okay, so they're both added to that. So an xy and an xy is 2 xy's. Square root of 6. And then we've got, let's see, square root of 9 is 3. And we get an answer like that. Okay. The only thing the book does differently, I like writing the letters and numbers that are outside of the radical in front of the radical like that. The book has a tendency to do it this way. So this way or this way are both correct. I prefer this way. The book prefers this way. But either way will be okay. And that's it for lesson 112.